Ladies and gentlemen, the Philippine National Anthem. Good morning. May I ask everyone to settle down as we will begin with the 2020 Special Stockholders Meeting of Surpass Inc. shortly. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the following officers of Surpass Inc. Mr. Nico Jose S. Noliedo, Chairman of the Board. Mr. Alexander D. Corpus, President, Chief Finance Officer, and Chief Information Officer. Mr. Fernando Jude F. Garcia, Director, Treasurer, and Chief Technology Officer of Surpass. And Attorney Mark S. Goriseta, Corporate Secretary, Chief Legal Officer, and Chief Compliance Officer. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of the following directors of Surpass Inc. Mr. Wilfredo O. Racaza, Director. Attorney Mercedita S. Noliedo, Director. And Mr. Jonathan Gerard A. Gurango, Independent Director. Ms. Imelda C. Tiongson and Mr. Bartolome Silayan Jr., nominees for Independent Directors, are also present in this meeting. The agenda for today's meeting will be as follows. The President of Surpass Inc., Mr. Alexander D. Corpus, will now preside.
Welcome to the 2020 Special Stockholders Meeting of Surpass Inc. We would like to thank everyone for attending this virtual meeting, despite the challenges that each one of us is facing due to this coronavirus disease 2019. We hope that you are all safe and coping with the current situation. We wish to inform everyone that we will be recording this meeting. The minutes of the meeting will be made available in the company's website within 7 days. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Corporate Secretary, have all the notices for this meeting been sent? Do we have a quorum for the transaction of business at today's stockholders meeting?
Mr. Chairman, notice of the time, date, mode of conduct, and purpose of this meeting was sent through a disclosure via the PSE Edge portal and was made available in the company's website on April 3, 2020. Furthermore, I certify that stockholders owning 1,206,050,852 or 64.43% of the 1,871,830,210 shares as of December 13, 2019 are present via remote communication or through proxy. Therefore, there is a quorum for the meeting.
Before moving to the first item in the agenda, I would also like to request our Corporate Secretary, Attorney Mark S. Goriseta, to explain the rules of conduct and voting procedures to facilitate the orderly flow of our meeting.
The following is the procedure for discussion and voting. Questions and comments may be sent prior to or during the meeting at corpsec@surpass.com and shall be limited to the items on the agenda. Questions or comments will be read aloud and addressed during the question and answer period, which shall take place after all matters for approval have been discussed. The company will only read questions and comments which are relevant to the agenda. Management will reply by electronic mail to questions and comments not taken up during the meeting. Each stockholder was given an opportunity to cast their votes by submitting their ballots via the online registration link circulated by the company. Stockholders may also participate in the voting by submitting a proxy. As disclosed in the company's definitive information statement, the deadline for the submission of the ballots and/or proxies was last April 27, 2020. The company has already tabulated all votes last April 30, 2020. We assume that all participants of this meeting have already submitted their votes or proxies when they registered online. Each outstanding share of stock entitles the registered stockholder to one vote. For the election of directors, stockholders may accumulate their votes, and the candidates receiving the highest votes will be declared elected. For the matter of the approval of the purchase of 100% interest in Wavemaker U.S. Fund Management Holdings, LLC, the affirmative vote of at least 2/3 or 67% of the issued and outstanding capital stock entitled to vote and represented during this meeting will need to approve such resolution. Considering that the attendees of this meeting is less than 67%, we will not proceed with the voting on this item. Nonetheless, Mr. Nico Jose Esnoliedo will discuss the proposed transaction. For all other matters to be taken up, the affirmative vote of at least a majority of the issued and outstanding capital stock entitled to vote and represented during this meeting will be needed to approve each resolution. The voting process was also explained in our bylaws in the information statement circulated via the PSE Edge portal and the company's website.
There being a quorum and having settled the guidelines for discussion and voting, we shall proceed with the first item in the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the annual stockholders meeting held on November 8, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, copies of the minutes of the annual stockholders meeting held last November 8, 2019 have been uploaded in the company's website and was included in the definitive information statement disclosed via the PSE Edge portal. The following matters were approved during the previous meeting. Number 1, approval of minutes of previous stockholders meeting held on July 17, 2018. Number 2, approval of the annual report of the President and Chief Operating Officer and the presentation of the 2018 audited financial statements. Number 3, election of the Board of Directors. And number 4, appointment of SGV as the company's external auditor.
The resolution for approval is flashed on the screen. May I now ask the Corporate Secretary to report the results of voting.
Stockholders holding at least 63% of the total outstanding shares of Surpass Inc. approved the minutes of the previous meeting. Given this, I hereby certify the stockholders' approval on the minutes of the meeting held on November 8, 2019.
The next item in the agenda is a discussion of the purchase of 100% interest in Wavemaker U.S. Fund Management Holdings, LLC. We would like to welcome Mr. Nico Jose Noliedo, the Chairman of the Board of Directors of Surpass Inc.
So at Surpass, we continue to implement a significant reorganization over the past year. Focus is really on recurring and sustainable revenue for the company. Over the past several years, a lot of companies have taken a digital transformation initiative. Going into 2020, there's been a lot of dialogue with big corporations around this. And you're really seeing a lot of conglomerates have announced their plans around digital transformation. With COVID-19, these plans for many corporations have accelerated. And you're seeing a lot of news reports about how companies are being forced to accelerate these initiatives. This represents a substantial opportunity for Surpass to work with these big companies and SMEs to be their partner when it comes to this transformation by providing custom tools, solutions, and services using our technology capabilities. We also announced late last year that we had acquired 100% of a US firm called Wavemaker, based out of California. I'll talk a bit about Wavemaker later, but really this combination of predictable revenues from companies wanting to transition to the digital space, plus the opportunity that Wavemaker represents as a global technology management firm, is a very exciting prospect for Surpass. So back to Wavemaker. Who is Wavemaker? So Wavemaker is based out of California. They've been around since 2003, so not really a startup. They've made more than 230 investments globally. They have about $210 million plus of assets under management. That's more than 10 billion pesos in assets under management. They have 25 full-time staff across 3 core funds and 1 sidecar fund. They've had a lot of track record, experience, and success being in the technology investment space. 2 out of 3 Wavemaker partners are Filipino, Eric Manlunas and Paul Santos, both former entrepreneurs who decided to move on to technology management and investment. Buck Jordan is the 3rd partner, again a seasoned technology investor. Wavemaker has been very successful over the past years and across their funds. Independent reports and reviews have shown that they are consistently in the top quartile of US venture capital firms when it comes to the success and performance of their portfolio. And that's been very consistent for them over the years. A lot of their investees, guys like Funware, Ranker, have experienced a more than 10x return for investors in their fund. Several media outlets globally have also shined the light on a lot of their investees to show that they're also entering the social consciousness of the consumers that they touch across their products and services. So it's not just a nebulous technology stack. It's also real products that impact the lives of their consumers. What's interesting is when COVID-19 happened, a number of their startups have experienced substantial growth. Guys like Wink, who offer wine subscription, have seen more than 9x acceleration in their sales. Guys like Stack Commerce, who works with large e-commerce firms, have also seen a big jump in their sales. They sell products and services to large publishers like IGN, creating these media e-commerce sites. And those sales have really substantially increased. Pray.com allows community members to connect to each other, and a lot of paid subscriptions coming from people wanting to get content, especially during these times, which is very relevant. Kitchen United, one of their star investees, is in the very hot cloud kitchen space. So this has also been a fast-growing opportunity for North America, where they serve a lot of customers there for takeout orders. We did this deal simply because we saw that over the last 2 decades, a lot of technology companies would just take 3 to 6 years maximum before they decide to go public. Guys like Google, guys like Amazon, and continue their growth path there. So early investors in those companies have realized a substantial return, several fold from their investments. But over the last 5 to 10 years, the largest tech companies have taken their time. In fact, you'll have giants like SpaceX, Palantir, who are beyond 15 years old of being around, still continuing to remain private because there's substantial private capital for them to fund their growth. The challenge is, if you're a retail investor in North America, you can't get access to these deals. More so if you're a retail or even institutional investor in Southeast Asia or the Philippines. You will not be able to participate in this growth. You will not be able to invest directly in these fast-growing technology businesses. And why would you want that? You'd want that because since 2013, the compounded annual growth rate of the value of private tech companies has been an aggregate 89.4%, beating the traditional stock exchanges in almost any market. We also like this deal because of the economics of it. So Wavemaker makes money two ways. One is management fees. So year on year, Wavemaker gets 2% of the funds that investors have put into Wavemaker. So regardless of the performance of their investees, Wavemaker generates that 2%. And that's very consistent. At the same time, there's a carry. Carry is sort of like a profit share. So if their investees generate sizable returns through an exit, 20% of the profit of those returns go to Wavemaker. So there's the upside without any downside. So to summarize, we like Wavemaker because they give us access to 200 plus technology firms globally in markets that we don't really have the reach for as Surpass. They have more than 10 billion pesos in assets under management. They have a proven track record of being very successful. They're not a startup. They've been around for almost 2 decades. They're part of the Draper Venture Network. Draper Venture Network was created by Tim Draper, legendary Silicon Valley technology investor, one of the first monies into Hotmail, Tesla, Twitter, SpaceX, and a number of household startup names. Eric Mandunas, in fact, sits on the Draper Venture Network board. At the same time, a lot of big institutional families, family institutions, family offices, state funds have actually deployed capital into Wavemaker, which shows that very sophisticated investors trust the Wavemaker team to take care of their capital. Benefits to investors in Southeast Asia, especially the Philippines, is access to this very unique asset class, access to these high growth private technology firms around the world. And a lot of that really sits in North America. A lot of that growth really sits in North America. We get that continued steady stream of management fees. Plus, if any of these investees have a sizable exit, there's also a profit share from that, from the carried interest. There's another plus for this deal, which is a lot of these investees sit in North America, which has a much higher cost base. So we're already engaging with a number of those investees to farm out a lot of their technology development, both core and non-core, to Surpass. They like talking to us simply because we've also had experience doing consumer applications and services. So it's talking to not just a generic outsourcing technology firm, but someone who's actually had experience doing consumer technology. So if you really look at this combination, Surpass moving forward will generate revenue coming from working with corporations for their digital transformation initiatives, will generate consistent revenue coming from the management fees generated from Wavemaker, and at the same time will generate recurring revenue working with their investee companies, especially in the West, to develop their technology solutions for them and be their partners there as well. So all of those are very consistent. At the same time, there's substantial upside if some of those portfolio companies realize an outsized exit, which in combination, we believe, is a very strong opportunity and future for the organization.
To summarize, the Board of Directors of Surpass Inc. approved on November 6, 2019, the purchase of 100% interest in Wavemaker US Fund Management Holdings LLC, which consolidates at least majority interest in 4 existing fund management entities: Seamer Ventures LLC, Wavemaker Partners LLC, Wavemaker Management LLC, and Wavemaker Global Select LLC. The purchase price for the acquisition is at approximately 170 million pesos. We wish to inform the stockholders that the sellers, Eric Manlunas, Paul Santos, and James Jordan will also be subscribing to Surpass new common shares equivalent to 47.68% shareholdings in Surpass. The issuance of the said shares will be discussed in the next item of the agenda. Considering that Surpass Inc. does not have at least 67% stockholders present or represented in this meeting will not be considered for voting. Subject to further evaluation of the Board of Directors and the Executive Committee of Surpass, this may be included as an agenda in the 2020 Annual Stockholders Meeting.
The next item in the agenda is the approval on the issuance of up to 1,706,072,261 new common shares or the subscription shares from the unissued authorized capital stock of Surpass and the listing of the subscription shares with the Philippine Stock Exchange. Our Corporate Secretary, Attorney Marquez Goriseta, shall explain the terms of the transaction.
On November 6, 2019, the Board of Surpass approved the issuance of 1,706,072,261 common shares or the subscription shares at the price of 10 centavos per share from the available authorized capital stock to Eric Manlunas, Paul Santos, and James Jordan. The subscription shares will be issued at par value. Upon issuance, the subscribers shall own shares equivalent to 47.68% of the total outstanding shares of Surpass. The company will issue new common shares to Eric Manlunas, Paul Santos, and James Jordan, the subscribers, from the unissued authorized capital stock. There are no special rights attached to the shares to be issued to the subscribers. Similar to all other holder of common shares, each holder of common share shall be entitled to such dividends as may be declared by the board, and on the basis of the outstanding stock held by them. Each common share also entitles the holders to one vote. The proceeds from the issuance of the subscription shares will be used by Surpass to purchase 100% interest in Wavemaker US Fund Management Holdings LLC. Surpass will purchase the holding company that owns several management entities as discussed by Mr. Noliedo earlier. The corporate structure after the issuance of the Surpass shares to the subscribers is currently flashed on your screen. The subscribers have agreed to waive their dividend rights in the event that there is any income or return in favor of Surpass for a period of 12 months from execution of the definitive agreements. This will ensure that the subscribers do not immediately benefit from any of the existing business of the company that may cause any disadvantage to the current shareholders. Surpass has a commitment to the subscribers to list the subscription shares with the exchange within 1 year from the execution of the definitive agreements. Nico Jose S. Noliedo and Fernando Jude F. Garcia have committed to provide a percentage of the listed shares in their name to the subscribers in exchange of the unlisted Surpass shares issued to Eric Manlunas, Paul Santos, and James Jordan in the event that the new shares will not be listed with the exchange within the 1 year period.
The resolution for approval is flashed on the screen. May I now ask the Corporate Secretary to report the results of the voting.
Stockholders holding at least 64% of the total outstanding shares of Surpass Inc. approved the issuance and listing of the subscription shares with the exchange. Given this, I hereby certify the stockholders' approval on the issuance and listing of the subscription shares with the Philippine Stock Exchange.
The next item in the agenda is the election of the independent directors of the board for the ensuing year. Our Corporate Secretary will explain the nomination process.
The company's nomination committee pre-screened and accepted the nominations for the following directors: Mr. Bartolome Silayan Jr. and Ms. Imelda C. Chongson. The above nominees are nominated to be independent directors of Surpass. All nominees possessed all the qualifications and none of the disqualifications under the company's bylaws and manual on corporate governance and are eligible to be nominated and elected as directors of the company. The qualifications of the said independent directors are provided in the information statement, which was disclosed through the PSE Edge portal and posted on the company's website. The qualifications of the nominees are also flashed on the screen for your reference. For directors' compensation, directors receive a standard per diem of 20,000 pesos for every meeting attended, while the chairman is entitled to a per diem of 25,000 pesos for every meeting. Non-executive directors have no compensation aside from their per diem, while directors who hold executive positions receive compensation in addition to their per diem.
The resolution for approval is flashed on the screen. May I now ask the Corporate Secretary to report the results of the election.
Based on the tabulation of votes, each of the two nominees has garnered at least 63% votes from the total issued and outstanding shares of the company. Given this, I hereby certify that each nominee has received enough votes for election to the board. We welcome Ms. Imelda C. Chongson and Mr. Bartolome Silayan Jr. to Surpass Inc.'s board.
Moving on. The next item in the agenda is the amendment of the bylaws of the company. As you may know, the coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-19 pandemic has greatly affected all of us. Pursuant to the revised Corporation Code of the Philippines, the company is securing the approval of its stockholders to amend its bylaws to allow the following. Notice to stockholders be sent through electronic mail and such other alternative modes as may be allowed by the SEC, and participation through remote communication or in absentia, and voting through remote communication or in absentia. The sections to be amended in the bylaws are flashed on the screen. The resolution for approval is flashed on the screen. May I now ask the Corporate Secretary to report the results of the voting.
Stockholders holding at least 63% of the total outstanding shares of Surpass Inc. approved the amendment of the bylaws. Given this, I hereby certify that the stockholders approved the amendment of Surpass Inc.'s bylaws.
We will now proceed to answer questions raised by stockholders. The company will only read the questions and comments which are relevant to the agenda. Management will reply by email to questions and comments not taken up during the meeting.
Previously submitted questions will now be read by Attorney Mark Goriseta. May we request our key officers to please turn on their video for the Q&A?
I will read the questions raised by stockholders. Any of the directors or officers may respond to the question. Question: what are the incoming projects of the company in the next 3 to 5 years, 10 years? How do we see the company in the short term and the long term?
Let me answer this question. As discussed in the earlier presentation, we have repositioned the company to have two key components. Number one, focus on enterprise solutions so that we have a recurring, sustainable revenue. And number two, Wavemaker's portfolio of tech startups that we expect to provide significant upside returns in the years to come. Now, for enterprise solutions, the pressure is much greater now for companies to embark on or accelerate or fast-track their digital transformation because of COVID-19. Whether you are a small startup or a mid-sized company or a large diversified conglomerate, going digital has never been more important than now. Surpass is in a great position to help these companies in this initiative. It's also worth noting that the area of tech where Wavemaker had made most of its investments long before the pandemic is the enterprise space. we have already seen a number of these investments doing well even in COVID-19, in the COVID-19 situation. So this, we believe, enhances the potential of the Wavemaker portfolio. I think these are the things that we will do in the next few years.
Thank you, Mr. Corpus. We will now proceed with the next question. Next question is from the stockholder. Can you summarize the transactions involving Wavemaker? Allow me to respond to this question. There are two transactions involving Wavemaker. First is that the general partners of Wavemaker Partners US, Eric Manlunas, Paul Santos, and Buck Jordan, we will be subscribing to approximately 48% of the total outstanding shares in Surpass at 170 million pesos in cash. All new shares to be issued to the general partners will be from the available authorized capital stock of Surpass. Second, Surpass will purchase 100% interest in Wavemaker Partners US Fund Management Holdings LLC at approximately 170 million pesos in cash. The management firms under the said holding company will be consolidated into Surpass once we execute the definitive agreements. Note, however, that since the stockholders were only able to approve the issuance and listing of the subscription tranche today, we cannot proceed with the purchase of the Wavemaker Group until we receive or we secure the required vote from the stockholders. The board of Surpass will evaluate further the transaction relating to the purchase of the Wavemaker US Fund Management Holdings LLC. Thank you. We'll now proceed to the next question. I believe this is the third question. The next question is also related to the Wavemaker transaction. The question is, what is Surpass and Wavemaker's rationale for the transaction? How will the purchase of Wavemaker US Fund Management Holdings LLC benefit Surpass and the minority shareholders?
So, again, I'll respond to this question. As far as Surpass is concerned, the rationale of Surpass in undertaking this transaction is that Surpass considers the expertise of the general partners of Wavemaker to be beneficial to Surpass's current enterprise business. We also believe that the transaction will help Surpass's financial stability and provide business opportunities in the long term. On the other hand, the transaction will give Wavemaker Partners a unique competitive advantage given Surpass's status as a public technology company. In the next 5 to 7 years, Wavemaker Partners plans to further grow its assets, and this partnership with Surpass, they see, will only enhance its chances of achieving that, since they will be able, or we will be able to leverage on Surpass's access to public markets. For Surpass itself, since Wavemaker has made a lot of investments in various technology companies, as discussed in the previous presentation, through this transaction, Surpass can have access to these investments and potentially increase its own enterprise business portfolio. As far as there was also a question on the benefit to the shareholders, all shareholders, including the minority shareholders, will economically benefit from this transaction because when Wavemaker exits from its investments, which is at a multiple, then the shareholders will benefit. Likewise, there's also a recurring management fee that the management firm will get from the assets that it is managing. So that for me would be the rationale why Surpass Wavemaker went into this transaction and the benefits for Surpass and the shareholders.
Thank you again, Mr. Corpus. A stockholder has sent a query asking for the technology trends that are relevant while we are battling the coronavirus disease 2019 and technology trends post-coronavirus pandemic.
I can take that. next year. There's a saying that it takes 21 days to build a habit. By the end of the quarantine, assuming there's no extension, then we will be at day 60. And so there's going to be a lot of shifts as a result of the new habits being formed. For example, a lot of companies from a work perspective are probably going to keep a generous portion of their workforce who are able to do so will continue at the work from home or partial work from home operational routine. And you're seeing this globally where a video conferencing tool like Zoom has increased its usage 2,000% in a span of 90 days. Where Zoom becomes the meeting room, where something like Slack, which has also seen a generous growth of its usage and subscriptions, becomes the new way by which people will socialize. Maybe something like Trello will be used by companies to track progress when it comes to projects, or a Google Data Studio becomes the dashboard by which KPIs are tracked in real time. So definitely a ton of changes from a work side. From a shopping retail side, food retail, I think, will be substantially affected, especially when social distancing gets implemented, where there will be a maximum number of customers who can do dine-in in a restaurant, for example. So you're going to see a lot of shifts towards things like e-commerce, like people ordering food on delivery, and even basic goods and services, groceries, mall stores will now have to figure out things like payments, logistics, digital marketing. Companies in the entertainment and content field will also have to shift. Maybe less traditional media and more online media. And you're seeing the rapid adoption of new platforms. So, for example, during the quarantine period, you'll have an app like TikTok that would generate 7 million new downloads, app downloads in the Philippines alone in a single day, which shows it's not just your usual Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, but also these new incumbents coming forth. And I bet most companies won't have something like a TikTok strategy. So you're going to see a lot of shifts across multiple sectors, and I believe there are opportunities to be had there.
Thank you, Mr. Noliero. Okay, we'll proceed to our next question. A stockholder is also asking if there are other public companies who have invested in entities similar to the business of Wavemaker. So I guess Mr. Noliero will respond to this.
This is a bit of a unique structure. No? You won't really see too many public companies that has both an operating side to the business and at the same time a very vast portfolio in the hundreds as part of the publicly listed entity. At a larger scale, someone like SoftBank, which has also operates a number of technology companies, but at the same time has the Vision Fund, would be one. Out of Africa, someone like Naspers, which was an early investor in Tencent and now has a very large and vast portfolio, not counting their media operations in Africa, might be another one. But I haven't seen anything really similar in Southeast Asia. So it's a bit of a unique structure. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Noliedo. Due to insufficient time, the company will not be able to read and address all questions and/or comments during this meeting. Management will reply by email to questions and comments not taken up during the meeting.
Mark, can you repeat that?
Okay. Before we adjourn, we would like to inform the stockholders that the annual stockholders meeting will be held during the third quarter of 2020. We will inform you via the PSE Edge portal and the company website once a date for the said meeting has been finalized by the board. We thank you again for making time to attend the stockholders meeting of Surpass Inc.
This concludes our meeting. Stockholders who have additional questions may send an email to corpsec@surpass.com. Thank you for attending the 2020 Special Stockholders Meeting of Surpass.